Rao MD. I work with Mfino. We are a mobile financial services platform company. So it's good being here. Like Nigeria is like my second home, you know. We've got a lot of customers. I spent many months in Nigeria. So whenever I come back to Nigeria, I don't feel like, you know, I'm coming to a new country. So we'll talk more about how financial inclusion, okay, can be achieved in Africa and how it can help us overall, right? We're talking of more innovations that can help in achieving the goal that we call as financial inclusion that will help the overall ecosystem. Okay. Clear thing is finance is not an end by itself, right? But it's a means to help, you know, solve significant challenges to improve the lives of people. The key thing is we are talking about bringing financial inclusion where we have basic essential services like energy, health, education that can be provided to people. But beyond that, financial inclusion can help in the overall social and economic development of the country. You know, the GDP can grow. We talk of 1% tele-density can grow the GDP by 4 to 6% based on which region we talk about. But 1% financial inclusion can actually do a bigger wonder. So we'll talk what all can be done. If you look at the Africa overview right now, we have 1.1 billion people, 800 million customers, and Nigeria happens to be on top of the customer list. And 25 of the African countries have more than 90% mobile penetration. So the mobile penetration is there, it's good. If you look at the financial services, out of the total 220 deployments in the world, 117 deployments are in Africa. So Africa has taken a lead in mobile financial services compared to many other regions in the world. 46% of the mobile money transactions are processed in East Africa. However, if you really see, the major services still today are airtime top-up, P2P transfer, bill payments, and receiving of the bulk payments. So if you look at financial inclusion, the key three dimensions can be looked at as access. The reason why we have a problem with the traditional financial network is you have to open branches in many places, which is investment driven. It's expensive. So the physical proximity is very important. Then the affordability of services is also very important. If you look at some of the interbank transfers these days, the charges are very expensive, right? And cost of transactions. Let's say if you have to go to a distance to do that. So I'm a daily wage laborer, okay? So let's say I have to go to the nearest branch, which is like 50 kilometers away. I'm taking a small bus or something, going there, losing at least half my day's labor, and then I'm coming back, completing the transaction. On the way, I'm eating something outside. So the cost of transaction is not just about what the bank is charging, but the person who is going all the way doing the transaction is spending more money to complete a small transaction. Maybe he's just sending some money, but he's spending another 5% to do that transaction. So physical proximity is going to help affordability quite a bit. And if you look at the usage, the regulatory and frequency will have to increase, right? Considering the proximity and the expenses are higher, the number of transactions that you can do is less. And considering that you have to go to a specific place, the types of transactions you can do, the variety of transactions is also less. So that's another thing which we have to address. And the quality of service, okay? So when you talk about separate quality, we are talking of, there are different types of customers across the segment, right? You will have high-end customers, entry-level, mid-level, all types of customers. Everyone has a different use case, different need. So there should be financial products that are suitable for everyone. So that is another thing which has to be addressed in more detail. If you look at the basic barriers that we can say, the regulations is a barrier because the regulations want to control money laundering, CFT and things like that. Of course, we cannot say that you do not have regulations and allow anyone to do any transaction, right? But then we have to come up with different ways of how we can do that. If you see, more than 30 to 40% of people in Africa, families in Africa do not have a clear physical address, okay? So they do not own a physical address. They might be staying in many places. There are people who roam around. They are in rented places, okay? So if you see the CBN guidelines, okay, they have addressed it in a very nice way also. The unbanked customers have very minimal requirements, when it comes to the KYC levels. So they can provide very little documentation and still do some basic services. So regulations have to evolve with the same way and come up with more options where you put some kind of limits and allow them to do only little types of transactions, but you still allow them to do some transactions without all the required documents that are normally followed internationally. So that's something which people have to work around and come up. Then interoperability. This is something which has started off and it needs to evolve further. like initially SMS started off in the UK, and you could only transfer, send SMS in your own network. If at all we would not allowed from Vodafone to Etisalat and Etisalat to Airtel, we wouldn't have grown, right? The same way, in Nigeria, we already started doing interoperability between several mobile money operators, but it's still catching up, Most of the mobile money operators still are in network. The interoperability is still picking up. It has to pick up across Africa. And the other dimension for this is international roaming. Okay, when a customer traveling from Nigeria to Kenya might be able to use the M-Pesa services with a settlement arrangement between Easy Money customers and M-Pesa customers, or GT Money customers and M-Pesa. And scarcity of qualified agent. This has to be addressed with a lot of training. The key thing is, since financial services is new, the end customers need a lot of training, which means the agent should be well trained so that they can help people understand what kinds of stuff they have to do and what kind of stuff they can handle. So which means the key thing is we have to, the banks or the service providers and the telcos which are entering mobile money will have to address this part very strongly. And yeah, this is another thing. The financial literacy itself is very low, which is the reason why the agent networks to be well qualified so that they can address the requirements of the end customers. So what can be done? So, I mean, there are many ways which people can address. I'm sure other speakers are addressing different parts of innovations which can be, implemented. So we are touching some 4 topics related to individuals, SMEs, women, and some basic utilities. So for the individuals, we are having standard P2P services, but we can look beyond that. Savings, credit, insurance, rewards, things like that can be addressed. Then if you look at SMEs, most of the SMEs here are using informal financial channels. So to bring them into financial inclusion, you can give working capital loans, okay? You can actually come up with credit scoring. There are many microfinance institutions that are working with individuals and as well as SMEs. So the credit scoring, the credit record with the microfinance companies could be used by traditional banks also. And this whole thing can be addressed through the mobile media. And women. So if you see, currently most of the women take microloans or they are from the informal segments. In fact, there are some of the government regulations in several countries that actually show the property owning disparity between men and women also. So there are many things that we have to address. And if you look at utilities and essential services, we're talking of access to energy, water, and things like that, but we're also saying that, you have to have mobile markets for agriculture kind of stuff, okay? And then you should also have informational services where you are providing weather services, commodity pricing, what kind of crops you could go on for the next harvest season. There are many things that are being already done, but all these things should be inclusive. People should come together and provide services through a central platform and central initiative. So if you look at this, a small percentage of the households are only using formal banking. Okay, 90% of the transactions are still done in cash. Okay. So savings is less than 15% in Africa. And if you look at the key barriers being the nature and size of the market, the investment required, the risk involved, because there's not much customer information, okay? There's no clear KYC levels. So traditional financial organizations consider it a risk to deal with anyone and everyone, okay? So those are some of the main things. So government should adopt digital payments. That could be one way of doing things on a more mass scale. And they should offer different tools to the customer on the ecosystem, like mobile savings, loans, and micro insurance products could be one of the major ways of addressing this requirement. And the SMEs, there are 50 million SMEs in Africa, and they contribute to 58% of the employment and 33% of the GDP. But still, they are considered high risk by banks, okay? And there are also not wide range of financial products that suit SMEs, okay? Then even the customer does not have a good knowledge of the available products. It's vice versa. The banks don't know the customers do not know the banks. And the opportunities, you can actually look at micro and small medium enterprises, okay, with innovative and tailored products like M-Pesa's recent micro insurance product, Kilimo Salama, is one example. It's picking up quite well in Kenya, and such things can be looked at in other markets also. If you look at women, 1/3 of the firm owners are women, okay, but only 20% of them are banked. Okay, the key thing is economic barriers, social cultural barriers, unfavorable. There's a bias between men and women. Okay, when you are dealing with men, you might deal in a different way. Unfavorable, like if I don't know things well, and I go to a bank and I might try to get more information how to address the system and go through the system to get the loan I want. Being a man, I might get quite easier way of going through the system to get it, rather than a woman going through the same system. Both of us being non-KYC eligibility, right? So there are several things. And the opportunity could be, see, financial inclusion for women has very good social benefits. The key thing which we have seen in all markets, irrespective of Africa or Asia or South America, which we talk, women use the money more productively. They spend a lot of it towards using it for their children's education, nutrition, health, and things like that. So they're actually building the next generation to face the world. Men, I'm not saying men use money badly, but then, the way people have seen is women are more productive. If you see the daily wage workers, men that he brings money, he might drink half of it. The woman does not use so much for wasting money on other things. They'll try to build a family for the future. So microfinance institutions can play a very good role here. And the credit history can also be built from women through the microfinance transactions. So we are talking of like 600 million people are part of the agriculture economy, but only 5% of the national budgets are towards the agriculture sector. And only a fraction of it actually reaches the rural communities. So lack of access to credit, lack of engagement by commercial banks, though they are trying to do it, the reach is one of the major issues. So mobile marketplaces, informational services, agricultural loans, okay, things like that can be very well addressed. So mobile is the best gateway because we have 90% penetration in most countries, and it's an easier way for providing all the services with all the technology involved with proper audit trials. The first generation services, these are already there and are picking up. If you look at the second generation services, we are talking of savings, salary payments, ticketing, micro insurance, and things like that to come up. Then the next generation services could be the loyalty and rewarding, credit scoring, online payments, proximity services. So this is the way we can evolve the market so that we can see a better inclusion and overall growth in the entire African ecosystem. So, we are at the end of the slide. mFino can provide a very good platform. We have around 5 bank customers in Nigeria right now. And we have a very good platform that makes sure that the money comes into the wallet will remain in the wallet with different kinds of services and use cases.